$1 million a month in the real estate investment niche doing weekly webinars. How the hell is Tom Cruz doing this? And now I'm not talking about the actor, I'm talking about Tom Cruz. This guy is a Section 8 real estate investor. He sells a $7,000 program where he helps other people invest in the same real estate opportunities, of course, Section 8, as he does. And he's doing over $1 million a month doing the same method that Alex Hormozi, Shelby Sapp, Brooke Hiddink are using to get clients, which is a recurring webinar funnel. So please don't be fooled by the large number. Of course, it's $1 million a month, and of course that sounds a bit big to somebody that maybe makes less than 6 figures a month or maybe 6 figures a month. But don't be fooled by the large number. It's really a stupid simple funnel. It really is a stupid simple funnel. It just has a big leverage point, okay? And what is leverage? Let's talk about that first. So leverage is the difference between what you put in and what you get out. This is actually a definition by Hormozi himself. And to get to those numbers, to 6 figures a month or even 7 figures like Tom does, you need a funnel with leverage. Something that allows you to put in this much and get out this much, okay? Now, every single funnel, before actually explaining where Tom has his leverage, I want to explain how every single funnel has 3 phases in it. No matter what funnel you see, doesn't matter what you find out on the internet, they will always have these 3 parts. They will have traffic, which is where you find people that don't know you and people discover you. You have the tipping point, which is where you get them from curious lead to a high intent lead, okay? So from curious people to actually high intent leads. And then you have conversion, which is where you turn a high intent lead to a closed lead, okay? And you collect the cash, of course, okay? Doesn't matter which funnel you find, every single funnel has to have these 3 parts. And the leverage will be put in one of these 3. So like I said, to make 6 to 7 figures a month, you need leverage, either in traffic, in the tipping point, or in conversion. So for example, let's say you have your leverage in traffic. Maybe you have, like, for example, I don't know, let's say you have a 10 million follower Instagram account. Then your traffic is your leverage because you have a huge audience, and if you post one single reel, you will have at least 5 million people watching it, okay? Or your traffic could be the tipping point. Tipping point is, say for example, a very, very good funnel that turns a curious lead into a super, super hot lead. For example, a webinar where you sell one too many and you have people super warmed up because you sell to them for 45 minutes straight. Or your leverage point could be in the conversion. So for example, let's say you have a team of closers that is available 24/7 and you can literally take calls the very single day after the webinar, or literally the very single day after they book a call, and you can book literally anyone. Then your leverage is of course in the conversion aspect, okay? In Tom's case, he has his leverage in the tipping point, and I'm going to explain how that works, okay? Now, like I said, we have 3 parts. We have the traffic part, we have the tipping point part, which is a huge explanation here, and I think it's going to be a really amazing video, and then the conversion part, okay? So let's go over the traffic part first. So in traffic, there's 2 main ways a high ticket funnel gets traffic. Once again, no matter what you do, what you sell, you will usually have one of these 2. It will either be organic or ads. Tom uses only organic since he has a big enough audience. He has about 300K followers. But honestly, ads work fantastic if you don't have as big an audience. And actually, here's where I'm going to add Nacho's shows optimization point number 1. You should always run ads. Never depend only on organic. Because let's say, for example, here on organic, you post content to give authority and to get traffic, which means that you have to post at least 2 to 6 reels daily. Why? Because your content has 2 responsibilities. Number 1, give authority to new people coming into your profile, but number 2, get traffic. Whereas if you are running ads, you can post content to give authority, yes, to get people coming in from cold traffic to actually trust you, but traffic comes from your ads, which means that you can literally post once a week, and that's totally fine. Another aspect is to scale on organic is quite simply hard as fuck. Honestly, it's really hard because you have to either post a lot more content or get better leads from your organic content, which is also kind of hard because you have no control over your algorithm. Whereas on ads, you can scale on ads. All you got to do is run more ads or pump more money into the machine. Nevertheless, of course, the better combination is organic plus ads, okay? But like I said, Tom does organic, and let's talk about how he does it. So if you've ever seen an organic funnel before, you know that content usually falls into 3 buckets: top of funnel content, middle of funnel content, and bottom of funnel content. Okay, so let's go with top of funnel first. As seen with the colors here, top of funnel is like people that are kind of cold. Of course, they really don't know you from anything. You're kind of like grabbing a lot of eyes, maybe not the best ones, but you're grabbing a lot of eyes. Then you have middle of funnel, you're getting warmer, and people are going to be more prone to be your ideal client profile. And then you have bottom of funnel, which is people that are really hot and are closer to making a sale. Okay, so top of funnel, he does something pretty simple. He does some reels regarding virality and fruits of his labor. What do I mean by this? So for example, fruits of his labor, he posts a reel here, how he bought 3 Rolls Royces on the same day. And other virality things, he posted some reels here about the World Cup, or him giving some money to some kids on a lemonade stand. So things that are going to become viral and are going to bring him a lot of eyes, not necessarily his ICP, but his ideal follower. Okay, so once again, top of funnel, not necessarily where sales come from, but it's where we start getting numbers into the profile. Okay, then he does middle of funnel. In middle of funnel, he does mostly section 8 hooks in every single one of his reels in middle of funnel. Why? Because we're starting to want to filter more the eyeballs that we're getting, so that are more ideal, they're more ideal client profile. So as you'll see, for example, this one here, he says, oh, for example, in section 8 Pro, I use AI-based alerts on cash flow. So we're talking about tips on how he uses some tools from section 8. Talking about, I bought 2 city blocks 6 years ago and then immediately made my first TikTok video about section 8. Or giving some tips like, how do I get rid of squatters? Okay, so more things that will attract his ideal client profile. More investors that know what section 8 is and they're in the market for section 8. And then bottom of funnel is where we start doing some objection handling and talk about the product. His product is, of course, his program where he helps people invest in section 8. Okay, so for example, most of these are going to be answering some client questions. For example, he does here, is it hard to find tenants? And he answers that with 200K, what does next 2 years look like with your help? Talking about his product. Or, hey, I'm trying to convince my wife, I can get 21K in a few weeks. I will need expertise, So kind of resolving objections and talking about his product. And that will get him, of course, even less views, but very high intent leads. This is where actually action gets taken. Now, he does something pretty genius in his organic content, which is his 3-step call to action, okay? So first thing is, in every single one of the reels that I just showed you, he will insert a clip at the end. Like, it doesn't even matter if he's talking about the World Cup, it doesn't even matter what he's doing. At the end, he'll always add a clip saying something like, hey, now don't forget, if you have at least $20,000 in cash that you want to invest, whatever, and a CTA like, learn how to buy your first section 8 rental in 30 days, slots are limited, enroll in bio. Okay, so 2 things really important here. Number 1, here he adds a CTA, but second of all, and most important, is that he is already filtering and qualifying whoever takes action by saying, hey, if you have at least $20,000 in cash. So if I'm a brokey and I only have like 5K, I'm never gonna go to the CTA because he just told me, hey, only if you have 20K in cash, okay? Then in the comment of the post, he'll have something related to the post. For example, here he says, women are my best students and this is why. That's related to whatever the reel was saying. And then he'll add a copy paste introducing himself for anybody that doesn't know him from anything and say, hey, if you're new here, my name is Tom Cruz and I'm a section 8 investor, whatever. And then once again, adds qualification, if you have at least 20K cash to buy real estate. And then he gets them to the real CTA, which is enroll in bio. And that is the last step of the call to action. His real call to action and the real place where people actually go into the funnel is his bio. And here he has a link to his webinar jam, which is where people can enroll in his webinars. Okay, so that is exactly how he gets traffic. And I've just explained how he gets new people, like I said, people that don't know him from anything, to actually end up in the first door of the tipping point part, which is this webinar link. Okay, so now let's move to the tipping point, okay, which is, like I told you, where he has his leverage point. His biggest leverage point is in the tipping point. Okay, now There's lots of ways to get people from curious to high intent. Tons. Some people do DMs, some people do a generic landing page with some text, other people do VSL, which is really good, and other people do webinars. And Tom uses webinars because it's his biggest leverage point. Before I explain why and how this is his biggest leverage point, let me explain the 5 things any successful tipping point method must have to achieve this. And what I mean to achieve this is turn somebody from curious to high intent, okay? So the first one is qualify. It should qualify people coming in from traffic. Why? Because of course, even though he already does some qualification as his traffic side, people are gonna come in that don't have money, or maybe they're not our ideal client. And we don't want all those people going to sales calls or going to the webinar, okay? So that's why we have to filter people that have no money or are not ICP, so that we only get people with money. And we usually do this with a qualification form with specific strategic questions, okay? Then it should also make people trust us. And this is usually done by telling our story or some sort of credentials or some sort of credibility thing and adding testimonials, okay? Then it should also make people trust the product. So, like I said, qualify people, make them trust us, and then make them trust the product. So once he's already made people trust Tom, he wants people to trust his program. And usually that's done by product overview, explaining kind of like what the product is, and then once again, testimonials. And the fourth one is resolving objections. So you do this with 2 things. Number 1, and most important, market data. You have to analyze your sales calls, analyze your content, analyze everything, and realize what type of message is already working for people. And in the sales calls, what are people usually bringing up as the reason why they're kind of hesitant to buy, okay? And taking that and understanding what your ICP's objections are, you can then use that in here, plus of course, testimonials, you guessed it. And then the last one is incite action, of course, because as you know, the tipping point's main goal is to move people to the conversion, and we need them to take action. So we usually do that by selling the next step. What do I mean by selling the next step? What I mean is that the tipping point's goal shouldn't be to sell the product or sell the program. We don't want that. What the tipping point should do is sell the webinar, sell the next step, whether it is a webinar or a sales call, whatever, okay? With scarcity and urgency, okay? Now, depending on which traffic people are coming from to the tipping point, you have to pay most attention to either this one or these 3. So for example, if people are coming from organic, you're gonna have to focus more on the qualification part, because usually people coming from organic are not the best qualified leads. Whereas if you are getting people from paid traffic, you're gonna have to focus more on the trusting part and the resolving objections. Why? Because of course they're cold and they're not as warmed up as if they came from organic. But like I said, in the organic side, we need to qualify people. And that is actually where I want to add my optimization point number 2, which is that if you're only doing organic, you're missing out on running ads with CAPI, which allows you to control the lead quality, okay? Now, here's the thing. CAPI is Meta's conversion API, okay? And it allows us to control the lead quality. It allows us to actually put a hand in the back end and tell Meta, hey, I want you to learn, and I want your algorithm and your AI to learn from only the leads that have money. I want you to bring me more of these guys, okay? And how do you do that? Well, this is pretty simple. So you're probably getting leads like this, right? People that sometimes have money, but most of them will not have money. They're like these zombies and people that are just not willing to buy, okay? What we do is we filter them with a money filter or qualification form, whatever it is. Then we only get the rich leads and only they will book a call. And what we do then is that we use Meta Conversions API to feed the algorithm data from only people that have money. And of course, Meta's algorithm is an extremely optimized machine in the backend, which knows how to find people like whoever. So what it'll do is that next time around, it'll get even richer leads. So as you can see, even better leads, more people with money. And once again, we repeat the process, filter them, get richer leads, only they will book a call, and once again, over and over, get better and better leads, which makes the ads even cheaper and more effective, okay? Now, moving forward, having reviewed the things any tipping point method must have, I'm gonna tell you now why Tom chose webinars. okay? So there's three main reasons why webinars are one of the best leverage points there are in any funnel, okay? First one is it's one-to-many selling, which means that he can sell at the same time, sell to, let's say, 500 people at the same time. So going back to the definition of leverage, what we put in versus what we get out. So Tom's effort is the same as if he was selling to only one person, but he's selling to 500 people at the same time. That is leverage. And aside from that, the owner will always be the best closer, okay? Aside from that, it's also live. So if you've ever gone to a live event, you know that people tend to be more likely to take action on live events, okay? And actually a webinar is a seminar, but in the web, of course. That's why it's called a webinar. So that's the beauty of being live. And also it generates by far the warmest leads out there. You will not find, let me be very emphatic on this. You will not find any other funnel that will get you warmer leads like webinars. Why? Because we pump people with value for 45 minutes and then they just need a final push. If you do it right, which I'm going to explain how he does it, all you have to do is warm them up for 45 minutes straight and then they just need a final push so they can go off the cliff and fall into our hands, okay? Now, those are the main three ones, but if you add that he does it recurringly, so not once a month, but he does it once or twice a week, sometimes even daily, not in the case of Tom, but other people do it daily, then, ladies and gentlemen, we have what we call leverage. Now, how does this look in reality, of course? Well, Tom has a three-phase webinar funnel. The first part of the funnel, and this is exactly what goes on after people click the link in his bio, is they get taken to a registration page, okay? The main goal of this page is get the lead's basic data to send them the webinar link plus attendance follow-ups. So let's dissect the page a little bit, okay? First off, he has a clear promise here. Hey, you're gonna learn how to make $50K a month buying Section 8 houses with my AI Pro tool. That's his main promise. And he's giving them a reason why to go to the webinar. Like I said before, we're selling the webinar, not the actual program, okay? He adds scarcity, like I mentioned as well. Current slots remaining 14. That's probably like a fixed number, but that of course adds a psychological framing to it, which is, hey, there's scarcity in this. I have to move, right? He also describes the clear outcome of the webinar. So he'll say, hey, discover how guaranteed rental income works, how to pick the most profitable Section 8 cities, how to buy your first house starting with 15K. So once again, selling the webinar, not the program. He has a small micro VSL englobing everything that I just mentioned. And of course, he has some urgency as well. He says, hey, it's within 5 days or 3 days, whatever, and a very clear CTA, okay? From there, he will take people to a low ticket starter kit page. And this is an amazing strategy that really not a lot of people are doing it. And it's a freaking amazing strategy. Like I said here, it's simple, unpopular, but it's extremely high impact. I'm gonna explain why this is such an important part. But before I do that, I wanna explain what the goal is here. The goal is increasing the likelihood of lead conversion, okay? So the goal here was get the lead's basic data and send them the webinar link, and of course have them register. Here, we have to increase the likelihood of lead conversion. What I mean by this is increase the likelihood that they will buy in the webinar, okay? And this is super important, so pay close attention. So basically, I wanna go over the page real quick. He has here, hey, one-time offer, get an exclusive one-on-one coaching call with my portfolio manager who handles all my Section 8 purchases. Normally $600, but if purchased separately, but hey, guess what? I'm only gonna charge you $27 for all these things plus 3 bonuses, okay? Let's read here. He has, once again, a one-on-one call with a portfolio manager, top 5 gold mine Section 8 cities, and he has 3 bonuses, okay? Now, here's the beauty of this. This is genius. Honestly, this is freaking genius. So he basically uses this as a Trojan horse. People are paying us to get on a call that will then turn into a sales call. So we are skipping the webinar and getting on the sales call right away, and they're paying us for it. So let me be clear. This, of course, is a real strategy call. He will, of course, give value to people for those $27 and all those bonuses. Don't get me wrong. But he is using that strategy call as a Trojan horse because after the call, after the value was given, and after the person was warmed up once again in the call, he will then pitch the program. which means, like I said before, they're literally paying you and they're literally paying him to get on a sales call with him. They don't even know it, but that's the beauty of this. Another thing is the commitment principle in sales psychology. So if you've ever read the book, actually I have it here. So if you've ever read the book Influence, Psychology of Persuasion, you know that people will usually be swayed and persuaded if they already have a commitment to something. For example, if you are filling out a form and you just spent, let's say, I don't know, you just spent 30 minutes filling out a form, and then they'll say, hey, actually it's going to be taking 10 more minutes. You will usually say, oh man, honestly, I really want to go, but I just literally spent 30 minutes filling out everything. I mean, it would be stupid of me not to finish it up, okay? This is exactly the same thing that is applying here. Why? Because if you bought for $27 all these things and you have the one-on-one sales call, then it will be really, really weird psychologically not to show up to the webinar. You already paid $27 for the starter kit. Why would you not show up to the webinar? And even more, why would you not buy? Okay? So this is the second principle. And then we also can identify high intent prospects and collect their data for future retargeting. What this means is that if somebody bought the $27 starter kit, they will be tagged as a high intent lead, okay? Because of course, if I paid the $27 for a starter kit, then Tom knows that I am more likely to buy after the webinar, okay? So in the back end, he will do some retargeting towards me because I bought the $27 starter kit, okay? And then the fourth one, which is also pretty genius, is that we are liquidating ad spend. So in Tom's case, of course, he doesn't run any ads, but if he did, he will be making $27 back. So for example, the average cost per registrant is usually $10, okay, to a webinar funnel. So if he's charging $27, he could not only get that money back, but also even make money from it, okay? So that's the beauty of this page, and honestly, it's really, really genius, okay? And the last part is, of course, the confirmation page. So the goal here, so let's go back to the goals. So the goal here is get the lead's basic data to send the webinar link and attendance follow-ups. The goal here is increase the likelihood of lead conversion. And then here, the goal is to increase the likelihood of attendance, okay? They actually showing up to the webinar. Now let's dissect the page real quick. We have a VSL in which he talks about the next steps, which are actually here. He sells the webinar even more by, of course, explaining what people are gonna get once they get in the webinar. He also adds some scarcity and urgency, and he also talks about people using a laptop over a phone to show up to the webinar. Very important, because usually the conversion is going to be very hard if they are on a phone, okay? People will usually buy if they're on their laptop. Super good tip. Now, after that, he has some next steps here. Step 1, bookmark your link. Step 2, mark your calendar. Step 3, access your free trial, okay? And then a nice form which accomplishes two things. It qualifies people before they get to the webinar, and it adds traceability and ICP data. What this means is that we can actually learn, for example, from which content piece or from which platform they came from, so that we can then learn about that data and take decisions from that, okay? So that's basically what he does. And now let's crunch down the numbers of these webinars, okay? Now, like I said, he does $1 million a month, and he has a $7,000 ticket, which means that if we divide $1 million divided by 7,000, we get 143 monthly sales. 143 monthly sales. That is 36 weekly sales, which means that he needs 36 sales per webinar, because like I said, he does a single webinar per week, okay? So to get 36 sales in a webinar, if you have a 30% close rate, which honestly, it's the bare minimum. If you're watching this and you have a less than 30% close rate, please reach out and I can help you out. But the average is 30% close rate, okay? So if he has a 30% close rate, he should be getting 120 sales calls taken to get 36 sales, okay? Now, let's take into account that only 80% of people actually will show up to the call after the webinar. So really, he needs 150 sales calls booked from the webinar. Now, only 25% will actually book a call from the webinar, which means that he needs 600 people to get to the point of the webinar where he does the pitch, okay? Now, only 80% will retain from the start of the webinar until they get to the pitch of the webinar, which means that he needs 750 people to show up to the webinar. And actually, and this is being really pessimistic, only 30% of people will show up to the webinar from the people that actually register, okay? Which means that he needs about 2,500 weekly registrants or 357 daily, which is very, very doable once you use organic like he does. Of course, he has 300,000 followers, or if you do ads and have a smaller audience. Actually, I wanted to do a small comparison to a smaller goal and a smaller ticket, okay? So for example, let's say that you want to make 150K a month and you have a 5K ticket, okay? So 150,000 divided by 5,000 is 30 monthly sales. 30 monthly sales, okay? That means you need 8 weekly sales, which means you need 8 sales per webinar. Only 8 sales per webinar, which is really, really doable. So I didn't want to do like the whole calculation here, but you basically need 567 weekly registrants or 80 people daily, which once again, it's super doable once you put in either organic or cold traffic into the mix, okay? Now, once we have seen the math behind it, now let's talk about the pre-webinar flow, which is really, really important. What I mean by this is what happens between they register to the webinar and they actually show up to the webinar if they do. This is really, really important, and what he does is really important as well. So the pre-webinar flow consists of emails and SMS. So basically what he does is immediately after somebody registers to the webinar, actually hold on, I need some Monster in me. So after they register to the webinar, they will get 2 emails immediately. First one is confirming their spot, talking about what they will see in the webinar, giving them some event data like the date and the time, and of course the link to the webinar, which is extremely important. Otherwise they can't get to the webinar. And then he also has a Section 8 tool, so he just sends a link towards the tool, okay? Then 24 hours before, he will send a strong testimonial. For example, in this case, it was, hey, meet Leo. Leo is like some guy that, of course, worked with him. And he actually, it says that he owned 40 Section 8 rentals in 8 months after working with Tom, okay? Then he resolves objections. He sells the event as a vehicle to achieve the testimonial's results. What I mean by this is he talks about Leo. He then resolves the objections that some lead may have. And then he sells the event, of course, the webinar, as the vehicle to get from where the lead is to a situation like Leo, okay? Also, 24 hours before, he will send a personal story of him resolving objections once again, and then he sells the event as well, okay? 9 hours before, he resolves more objections and sells the event even better. And then 1 hour before, he resolves more objections, talks about what we will see in the webinar, and then once again sends a link to the webinar, okay? Super important. So for example, here he's resolving some objections. For example, hey, you don't need any investor money to get started. You don't need hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars in the bank. You don't need a perfect credit score, okay? Talking about resolving objections. And the last one he does is 12 minutes before, and he says, hey, I'm waiting for you. What we'll see, talks about what we'll see in the webinar. That's about it, okay? Those are the emails, and then for the SMS, he does, I didn't want to put like the actual SMS, but basically he does 4 hours before, 1 hour before, 15 minutes before, when he goes live, and then 15 minutes after. There will usually be messages pretty basic, okay? And here I want to add my optimization point number 3. And the reason why is that honestly, this pre-webinar flow is very poor. And the reason why is because you should really run a 3-phase follow-up sequence to maximize attendance plus warmth of leads. So the day of registration, what he should do is send at least 3 emails. First one, confirming the event. Second one, what we'll see. And what he's missing, it's very important, is an email with a free resource. This is something Shelby Sapp does, and she's doing $5 million a month using, of course, webinars as well, and this 3-phase follow-up. And this free resource, for example, let's say it's a 16 doc gamma doc, or a 16 page gamma doc, or a 16 page PDF, whatever. And the resource will hype the event, it will bring value to people, it will add social proof, and they will frame the webinar as, once again, the vehicle to achieve those things, okay? And what this does is, once again, talking about the commitment principle. If you get all this, you will be even more committed to show up to the call, okay, to the webinar. Then in the days in between, which is usually at least 3 days before the webinar, he should send more social proof, more value, and more resolving objections, okay? But every single day for 3 days straight. And then the day of the webinar, he should send 12, 8, 7, 4, and 1 hours before the event, he should send emails and SMS mixed. Then before 15, 10, 5, and 0 minutes before the event, he should be sending SMS, reminding the person about the event and sending the link as well through SMS. And then 5 to 8 minutes after, if somebody hasn't actually gotten into the webinar, he should send also an email and an SMS, okay? Those are the 3 phases that actually gets, for example, Shelby $5 million a month and get people actually showing up to her webinar, okay? Now let's talk about the webinar. What the hell happens in the webinar, okay? Now, there's a general formula any high converting webinar must follow, but before I actually tell you, I'm gonna have a drink of my Monster Energy so I can actually talk and not die. So it's a 4-step formula, and once again, you will find this formula in every single webinar that is making $1 million a month. It's pretty simple. Basically, the first thing is giving them a reason to stay, and the reason is that people can't buy if they don't get to the pitch. The pitch will of course be at the end of the webinar, but people can't buy from you if they don't actually get to the end of the webinar, which is why you have to give them a reason to stay even from the start, okay? Then a massive value pump. Here, of course, you have to build trust so that they trust you and then make them believe in the product. Once again, make them trust you and make them trust the product. And this is the value pump that will get them hyped and super, super warm. This is the most important part in my opinion, because it's actually the part that will actually make people warm up so that they actually take action, okay? Then we have to reveal the gap between what they just learned here, okay, in the massive value pump, and actually achieving it. So they believe in the product and they believe in you, but they should feel the need of our help to accomplish it. That's the goal here. Reveal the gap between where they are and actually achieving it, even after everything they just learned, okay? So the usual way of doing this is actually showing them, hey, you can go through this road, which is of course going and do it by yourself, or you could take this road, which is, hey, hire me or buy my thing and I'll help you out, okay? And then the last one is an SUB pitch, okay? An SUB pitch basically means scarcity, urgency, and an exclusive bonus stack to maximize action taking. What I mean by this is the following. So you say, hey guys, so I have 10 spots left. That's scarcity. And if you take action today in this webinar call, I will give you access to bonus number 1, bonus number 2, bonus number 3. That is urgency and an exclusive bonus stack for the people that are in the webinar. That will maximize action taking because it feels like an exclusive offer for them. They will feel super pushed to actually taking action. And what's that action? Well, it's usually going to be one of two, either direct to checkout, which means you actually charge them in the webinar and make the sale in the webinar, or if it's a higher ticket, for example, in Tom's case, which is of course a $7,000 ticket, he does book a call. And what I recommend is use iClose. I'm not actually sure if he does this, but use iClose so that you can actually move people that are higher intent leads to book faster than other leads that might not be as high intent, okay? Now, this will give you an at least above 80% retention rate, so people actually get to the pitch at least 80%, and a 25% conversion rate, okay? All of these things combined. And another thing is that, as you can see here, I added social proof here. And the reason why I do this is because social proof will usually be the best way to keep a webinar dynamic and to get people to the end of the webinar. Because of course, people love to see social proof. It's like eye candy. So add it all along the webinar, but the most important part is right here before the SB pitch. Why? Because before you do the pitch, you want to say, hey, and here you should probably use your strongest social proof. Say, hey, so actually Lewis, he did 50K a month doing Section 8. And then you do the pitch, okay? Because that way you get them up to here, and then do the pitch. Because they're super warmed up, and then when you do the pitch, they'll be even more inclined to listen to you, okay? Now, here are some common mistakes I see in webinars, most people do. So the first one is having no retention to pitch. Like I said before, you should have at least a 70% retention to pitch. And the reason why they do this is because they don't have enough epiphanies. Epiphanies, what I mean by this is all throughout the webinar, and this is actually, you should do this in any type of sale asset, whether it's a VSL, webinar, an ad, content, anywhere you want to close people, you have to add epiphanies. Epiphanies is literally what makes sales happen. And what this means is that you break a belief pattern in your lead. So for example, if I say to you, hey, webinars are great because of this, this, and this, and you didn't even know that, I'm breaking your belief pattern, and you're like, oh man, I just had an epiphany in my head. I realized that this is the best vehicle to actually obtain what I want. And that's what you have to do in every single ad, content, whatever it is, add epiphanies, okay? If you don't break their beliefs and you don't add something of value and you don't add something new to them, then it's the same thing as they've always heard. And why would they buy a high ticket from you if you're talking about the same thing everybody is, you know? So in sales, when you give people hope of something new, that is when they believe in you, and that's when they believe, hey, this is something different. I want to try this out, okay? And the other thing is that you don't know how to talk to your ICP. Once again, if you don't study your market data, you don't know how to talk to your ICP, and you don't know how to keep them interested until the pitch. And the other one is not giving enough value. And here I want to talk about the value to pitch spectrum. And this is actually something that works for every single thing you do, whether it's an ad, a VSL, a webinar, content, whatever it is, okay? So imagine a spectrum. So on this left side, let's take a webinar, for example. Let's say you do 0% value and you pitch 100% of the time in the webinar. And on the other side of the spectrum, you actually give 100% of the time value and you do no pitch, okay? Now, if you're on this side of the spectrum, people will feel robbed of their time and they will feel scammed. And even worse, they won't be primed or warmed up enough to buy because you didn't even give them any value, okay? Now, in the middle of the spectrum, people are nurtured because you're giving 50% value, but not all of the value. You're keeping some to yourself. So they're not so much nurtured that they think they can do it themselves. So it's kind of like the perfect blend because they are being nurtured, but not enough so that they think they can do it themselves. And then they think, hey man, I still need your help, honestly, okay? That's the best place to be. And then we have the right side of the spectrum, which is you only give value and you do no pitch. And here, something interesting happens. So even if you give them everything, you give away every single part of your business, people will still want your help. And here's the reason why. It all happens because of the principle of perceived likelihood of achievement, okay? Now, I'm pretty sure you know that nowadays, if you're selling any coaching, if you're selling any, product or whatever, people nowadays will pay high ticket. They'll pay $10,000, even $20,000, not because you're giving them a course, not because you're giving them, some sort of product. They care about actually achieving what they want. And they perceive that the likelihood of achieving that will increase if they are by your hand. So it's not ideal. Honestly, it's not ideal, but you accumulate so much goodwill and so much authority that even then, you will still be making money from that. So if you have to choose between one end of the spectrum and the other one, definitely choose the right side of the spectrum. Ideally, be between these two parts, maybe here in the middle, but definitely don't be below this part, okay? Awesome. Now, having talked about that, let's move towards the last part of the funnel, which is, of course, the conversion part, okay? Now, conversion. So like I said before, traffic is how we get people from not knowing us to actually being interested in what we sell. Then the tipping point is how we get people that are interested to actually being high intent and actually wanting to buy. And then conversion is where we collect the cash, okay? Usually this will be mostly in the back end with the sales team, okay? Now, I hugely recommend use iClose to book the best leads within 0 to 24 hours post-webinar and send them to the best closers, okay? Now, here's basically how the post-booking process works. It's actually pretty simple. Reminders, you have to do 24 hours, 1 hour, and 10 minutes before the call, and they should look automated. They should look automated. The reason why is that when the sales team actually reaches out, we want them to not feel clustered by so many messages. So these should be automated, and they should look automated so that when the actual sales team person reaches out, they know that it's actually a human person, okay? Now, in the nurturing phase, we should also send 6 to 12 value-dense emails, and what I mean by value-dense is have FAQs, objections, and social proof, okay? And all of this should send people to either the pre-call page, the one that we sent before, the confirmation page, or long-form content, okay? Like a YouTube video or whatever you do, okay? And then the most important part, of course, is when the sales team reaches out. Now, the first part is that within 3 to 5 minutes after the person booked a call, we're gonna send an introductory text by the closer, okay? Now, you have to mind here the urgency perception. What I mean by this is that we just said in the webinar, and whether it's like a VSL or whatever you're running, you're always gonna be using urgency. You're gonna say, hey man, we are only taking, I don't know, let's say 10 people a month, 20 people a month, 30 people a month, whatever. So if we say that, and then we hammer people with messages, say, hey, are you gonna join the call, whatever, oh, please join the call, then it's gonna be super weird, right? It's not congruent. So what you have to do is make sure that the presenter in the webinar always says, hey guys, by the way, my team is gonna be reaching out to you. Mind that. The reason why is because sometimes we get phony emails, we get, I don't know, whatever. So please make sure you answer them. If you don't answer, the call is gonna be canceled, okay? And that will actually help out this urgency perception thing, okay? Now, once the setters send an introductory message, they will then call them on a phone call to confirm time, logistics, and triage, okay? Important, have same day confirmation, which means that if you confirm on a Sunday and then you have the call on a Monday, you have to confirm on the same day, Monday, once again, okay? It's a whole different beast, so make sure you confirm the call the same day the call happens, okay? Because people nowadays, they just forget or they don't care, so make sure you do that. After that, so once again, introductory text saying, hey man, can we talk, whatever. Then do the phone call. Then you're gonna create a 3-person group chat. It's gonna be between you, the owner, the offer owner, which is, I mean, really you, like it's probably gonna be like either gonna be you or some seller with your name on it, the closer, okay, and then the lead, of course, okay? And then in that group chat, you're gonna send lead specific assets, which means that after you do the phone call to confirm the time, logistics, and triage, you're gonna learn a lot of things about the lead. For example, their age, some objections they have, some fears, maybe their profile, and you're gonna send lead specific assets, for example, resolving their objections, or maybe, for example, sending a testimonial that's gonna be of somebody that is similar to them, things like that, okay? And then, of course, you have the call. All of this is gonna give you a smoother sales process due to extreme lead nurturing, okay? And once again, let's review the funnel, okay? Like I said, you're gonna be taking traffic either from content or ads. You're gonna be pretty cold leads from there. They will register. They will maybe buy the starter kit, which will have them be even warmer. Then they're gonna be bombarded with social proof, value resources, and objection handling. They're gonna be even more warm. Then they're gonna have the webinar, of course, which is gonna be 45 minutes of live value pumping, having epiphanies, being shown social proof with their dream outcome, having their objections resolved, and pitch with an SUV pitch. And then, once again, bombarded with FAQs, objection resolution, social proof, all of this resulting in a lead that is ready to buy in the call, okay? You don't have that in funnels like, for example, alt text landing page or DMs, in which you have literally no freaking leverage, okay? Now, I know this because I've actually worked with people. For example, trading ants, we got them from 21K a month to 56K a month in 5 weeks. Marielle did $130,000 a month in 2 months, and Kurt went from 20K a month to 240K a month in 6 months using exactly this, webinars, okay? So if you want to take advantage of webinars with leverage, like Tom and all these guys do, sell your high ticket offer one-to-many, get hot leads to sales calls at scale, do it on cold traffic and or organic, set up the entire backend, including tech plus sales team, on a single setup or a revenue share deal, and start running webinars within your first 14 days, I might not be the guy for you. And the reason for this is that I don't know crap about your business. I don't know anything about your business. I don't know how you get clients. I don't know what your offer is. I don't know what your ICP is. And I'd be lying to you if I said, hey, I will add 100K to your business in 90 days. That is bullshit, okay? So what I suggest instead is that let's have a chat. There's literally a link below in the video. Book a call with me and we'll have a chat, a 30-minute conversation. You tell me about your business, I ask you some questions, and I'll tell you if this works for you or not. We're both adults here. I don't want to work with you if this doesn't work for you because I'm actually also risking my time and effort. So let's have a conversation. I'll let you know if this works, or if you'd be better off doing a VSL, if you'd be better off doing a book a call, if you need to fix something about your offer first. So regardless, I'll give you an action plan of of the steps you have to take to actually get to 6 figures a month. So worst case scenario, you get off the call with an action plan on what you need to do to fix your business and get to 6 figures a month. Or best case scenario, we actually get to work together and we make a ton of money. Okay, so book a call, or actually you can also DM me on Instagram. It'll also be in the description. So see you on the other side, and talk to you soon.